Alright, hello everyone, my name is Shep, welcome back to the Butcher's Circus. Today we are going to be continuing with the series of updates, buffs, reworks, nerfs to the Butcher's Circus. So today we are going to be looking at the Plague Doctor. But before we actually get into that, here's a little update on the current situation with the Butcher's Circus. As you can see, actually I need to have a full party, but as you can see we still do not have a connection. It has been, I think, 3 days since we've been able to actually play against each other, and we have not received any more news from the developers, but I do believe that a fix is in the way, so that would be quite nice. So like yesterday's video, I'm gonna go over why the Plague Doctor is kind of a low tier character and why she is in the bottom 4 at the moment, and then we are gonna review what changes I would do to her abilities and to her trinkets and also to her base stats, but we're not going to change any of that today, just the abilities and the trinkets. So this is going to be less of a rework and more of just buffs. The Hellion was more rework, Plague Doctor just going to get small buffs which are going to make her abilities feel a bit more dynamic and are going to make her playstyles feel a bit more enjoyable to play. So, the reason the Plague Doctor currently doesn't work is kind of similar to the Hellions, which is getting disrupted. The thing is, if you think about characters like the Arbalist and the Grave Robber and the Vestal, even if they get pulled, they still have a lot of tools, right? The Arbalist, for starters, has good move resistance. Even if she gets pulled, she has Bulla. The Grave Robber has Shadow Fade. The Vestal can still stun from position 2 and also use her big heal. Basically, most of the characters have quite good options, even if they get pulled. Same thing with the Occultist with his own Demon's Pull. One of his best abilities, still usable from position 2, as well as most of his abilities apart from the Abyssal Artillery, which does make sense. Yeah, in terms of the Plague Doctor, she has 5% move resistance, so basically any pull is gonna just yeet her to the front, and once she's in the front she can't use her best abilities, which are Plague Grenade and Battlefield Medicine, so it is quite sad. Also Blinding Gas, in case you are running kind of that meme team where you just bring an Occultist, you apply Stygian Embrace onto the Plague Doctor, and then you just have her do an insane amount of stress. You're basically not able to do that. And what that means is the Plague Doctor needs something to be able to fight it, because she's really squishy. She has 5 dodge, 31 HP, and even her offense, apart from Plague Grenade, it is kind of lacking. That Blinding Gas strategy is kind of a niche already, but yeah, her offense is lacking, her defense is very much lacking as well. She's just kind of a sad character that does work well in some matchups if your opponent can't disrupt her, but if she can be disrupted, she just feels too weak being disrupted, because it makes sense that once your characters get out of their favorable position, they're weaker, but the Plague Doctor just gets way too weak, and with this move resistance, if there's basically a shield breaker on the enemy team, it's basically a death sentence. If there's a bounty hunter on the enemy team, and if you don't guard immediately, it's also a death sentence. Plague Doctor gets her nickname Emboldening Vapors twice and dies for good reason, right? Because that's usually what she does. She just drops it twice and she's gone. So let's go over the changes as to how I would make her a little bit of a better character. So we are gonna go first into the Noxious Blast. Now, Noxious Blast is a nice ability. You can still use it from position 2, so that's kind of her saving grace even after she gets pulled. And it's just gonna get a small buff. No, not too big, it's just gonna get +5 stress. So really not too much changing about it, because I think it's already a decent ability. It's not really her weak spot, it's not really where she needs buffs, so it is just gonna get a very, very minor buff. Just make it a little bit more on par with Panic Darts. I think that is what she kind of wants here. Plague Grenade is not gonna get any buffs at all, no buffs, no nerfs. It's honestly her best ability. It's a very nice one. If you do manage to have your Blight, Skill Chance, Trinkets and just apply it to the backline, it is gonna feel really good to do a lot of DOT, so I'm not gonna change this in any way. Now, Blinding Gas, this one's going to be a little bit controversial, because this is going to be the first double stun in the Butcher's Circus. I'm going to remove the inflict stress and the debuff target, and I'm just going to make it a double stun. And she is going to be the best character, essentially, because she can remove 2 actions. No, I'm joking. This is not going to be a double stun character, it's going to get a different buff. Wouldn't that be silly? Yeah, no, it's not going to be a double stun. It is just going to have +5 accuracy, so it's a very minor buff. But mostly because this ability is already decent. It's not great, but it's decent, and it just feels very underwhelming when it actually misses. especially since the stress style trinkets I actually bring don't really give you plus accuracy. So I'm just going to give it plus 5. I think that would be perfectly okay to make it just a little bit better. So no, it's not going to be a double stun. That would be completely broken and ridiculous. That's not going to happen. We are going to get 2 very interesting new features with the Plague Doctor, but it's not going to be double stuns. So in terms of Incision, it is also going to get some nice buffs, and quite a crazy one is at that. Crit mod is going to go from 9 to 12, so it's going to get plus 3% crit chance, which is definitely going to help. And it's going to get a debuff on it, which is minus 50% healing received. Now that's massive. That is absolutely massive, because Incision is a troll gameplay, right? If you do want to have it as like your last ability in case you go to position 1, I mean, sure, it's going to be better than having nothing. But if you go into a match and just decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to go Incision from the start, I'm going to play Incision Plague Doctor, what's going to happen is you're going to lose. You're going to have a really underwhelming playstyle on a really underwhelming character. But now, with this buff and with the Trinket Changes, this Incision is actually going to be really insane. It's still going to hit the same abilities. I mean, it's still going to hit into the same positions from the same positions, so it doesn't have a lot of reach. But minus 50% healing skills essentially means you can make Flagellants, for example, heal from, instead of healing for 18 or 24, they're going to heal for 9 or 12, which is really not a lot. You could probably drop them down to 0 with the Plague Doctor herself if you do run her damage trinkets, so that is really good. And if you apply the debuff twice, it's going to make characters heal for 0. Of course, the debuff can be cleared, it's not a permanent debuff, so I feel like that would be a little bit too strong, but yeah, it is quite a powerful one. So do keep that in mind. I do think that Incision is going to be actually a really cool ability to use from now on, and you can actually see Plague Doctors in damage teams with this, so it's going to be pretty fun. Now, Battlefield Medicine is going to get a very substantial buff. What's going to happen to it is, I actually tried putting the ability slots on the little UI for the icons, and you can now use it from position 2 as well. So she can still use one of her strongest abilities even if she gets pulled once. So that is quite good. She's still going to heal for 3 on the other character, Cure Bites and Bleeds, and on herself she also heals for 3. So it's kind of like a Crusader heal, which is really quite good. It's just getting 2 kind of like average buffs, and it's going to be a very, very nice self-sustained ability. It's going to make her really a lot easier to just stay alive with, and that is obviously really quite good. Now, Emboldening Vapors is going to stay essentially the same. The idea, the concept behind it is essentially the same, but it is going to get a small buff. It's still going to buff a character for 25% damage and 10 accuracy, but now it's actually going to give that character plus 10% stun resistance. So once you do actually drop this buff on a character, what essentially happens is that character becomes high priority. So if it does get hit by stuns, you're having a really terrible time. But if you give the character 10% stun resistance with each buff, with 2, you're going to give it 20% stun res, which isn't a huge amount, but it can definitely help. 20% stun resistance is brass knuckles, tiger finger, you know? So it is definitely gonna help you out if you are bringing the Emboldening Vapors. It could be a game changer. So in terms of the Disorienting Blast, this one is getting a pretty big buff, quite beefy, yeah, for sure. So what's going to happen with this is that I also tried putting the ability slots again, and you can now use it from every position against every position, which means that the Plague Doctor isn't limited to just having Incision as the last character alive ability, because in the base game, of course, you don't really need to be able to use position 1 abilities with every character, because, you know, if you're losing a character in the base game, you're probably just going to try to retreat anyway, and your characters aren't getting disrupted quite as much as they are in the Circus. But now, if you are the last character alive with the Plague Doctor, and if you have a stress PD, you can still just run the Disorienting Blast and not having to worry about Incision, because she's definitely an ability heavy character. You want to pick all of them. It kind of feels like that. Most of her abilities are really good and fit different playstyles, so it is quite nice that now if you do not want to run Incision, if you want to run Stress, you can take the Disorienting Blast, and it's still going to hit to position 1, so you're going to be able to make use of that. And as a slight nerf, it's going to lose 5 Stress Health, so it's basically a minor nerf and a big buff at the same time. So let's move on to the Trinkets now. And first off, we're gonna have a look at Volatile Concoction. It's gonna stay the exact same. I didn't give it any changes. I think that it's a perfectly fine trinket as it is. I don't think it needs any buffs or any nerfs. It is just a really, really good trinket for her. Then we're gonna have a look at Acrid Vial. So the Acrid Vial is gonna get a slight buff. I was thinking of giving it accuracy, 6 accuracy, and who gave me that idea was essentially 2 people that I play with, and 2 people that actually gave me a lot of ideas for this Plague Doctor rework, because they play her more than I do, and those people are Eloxist and Jane Moon, so thank you if you are watching, you know, even if you aren't, thank you anyway for helping me out with the Plague Doctor rework. And they wanted to give her 6 accuracy, but I didn't give her 6 accuracy, instead I gave her Daze chance, because the 30% Daze chance is now going to be really helpful with that disorienting blast. And I felt like if she had 5, like, it would be just unfair to give a trinket 5 different stats. Like, no trinket has that. Apart from maybe Rite of Execution. Does Rite of Execution actually have 5? Let me have a quick look. This is kind of just an off-topic one. Does it have 5? No. Even Rite of Execution only has 4. So having 5 different stats would be just completely ridiculous. I would have to remove the Strength Cell to give it some accuracy, but honestly I feel like if you're on Volatile Concoction and all that, you're still gonna have pretty okay time, and having the Daze skill chance is now gonna be quite good. And yeah, that is it for Acrid Vial, and now let's have a look at the Amputation Saw. So the Amputation Saw is getting a minor buff. It's not really changing too much, but it's just going to give you +10 accuracy permanent instead of +10 accuracy versus bleeding. What this essentially means is you can run Incision Plague Doctor and already benefit from the accuracy, because Incision still only has 85 accuracy. I wasn't going to change that. And now you don't have to get the character bleeding before you actually get the plus accuracy. So it is definitely going to be helpful for you. And in terms of the Hazard Mask, I am actually going to give it 2 reworks, so there are 2 different versions of what could be the new Hazard Mask. I think that the second version is definitely a lot cooler, but the first one might be a little bit more balanced, because the second version is definitely crazy. It is 100% on the crazy side. Now, the first version is just going to give it +25% healing received and +30% blight resistance, so it's getting a minor buff to the healing received and the blight resistance part of this trinket. That's going to make her blight resistance go up to 100% once she does actually use this trinket, which is amazing. The only abilities that can really blight her reliably are Panic Darts from the Grave Robber, and even then, the chances are going to be 40 or 60 depending on her trinketing, so you're going to have very nice blight resistance on her. And not to mention the Battlefield Medicine, so blight teams are going to have a horrible matchup against the Plague Doctor. And the healing received is going to be very good if you do want to bring her as a frontline and try to make use of the Incision, because you're going to have +18 accuracy for it, which is really, really nice. You can maybe even give yourself Emboldening Vapors if you want to, and with the +25% healing received, what happens is if there's like an Arbalest healing you, or a Vestal healing you, or even a Flashlight healing you, 25% healing received is quite significant. It's almost as good as the Treated Bandages healing. We are going to get into a Trinket rework. Treated Bandages is definitely going to get a buff, but a +30% healing received definitely makes a huge impact. But you know, this trinket sucks, but it has something good going for it, and now that good is also going to be translated into the Hazard Mask. It's not as good as Treated Bandage. You can run both of them if you want to. That would be quite an interesting idea, but yeah, it is getting a slight buff. And the second variation of the Hazard Mask is going to remove the healing received part and the accuracy, and instead it's going to have still +50% max HP, which basically just increases your HP for a little bit. It's still going to have the blight resistance, because, you know, it makes sense, it's thematic, and now it's going to have 30% damage reflection, much like the Man-at-Arms Mirror Shield from the base game, so there's actually no damage reflection in the Butcher's Circus. This would be the first trinket, or the first character that will actually get some access to that damage reflection. And what that essentially means, when you're a frontline character like this, for example, if you get hit by a chop, if you lose 36 HP, which is your max HP, you're going to deal back 12 or 11, which isn't much, but it's definitely helpful. Same thing against stuns. If you're getting stunned for like 9, you're going to deal back 3 points of damage, which isn't the end-all be-all, but it's definitely helpful, especially if the characters are at death's door and trying to go for a death blow on you, or not going for a death blow because you're at 0 HP, so you won't deal any damage back. But if they're trying to go and do some damage to you while they're at death's door, if for some reason you get the death blow, that would be really cool, getting hazard mask death blows. So you're definitely going to be a very difficult character to deal with once you do run hazard mask, because you could run it with Bloodstained Gambeson, for example, and now you have 45 HP and 30% damage reflection. It wouldn't have plus healing received, because having healing received on the damage reflection ability would be a little bit on the broken side, but it is definitely something that would be quite good. So let me know in the comments which one you would actually prefer, because I think both are quite neat. I do quite enjoy both versions, but I think the second one is definitely a lot cooler, but the first one is still playable. Of course, the second one will not have the plus 8 accuracy. I felt like that would be a bit too much. So yeah, that is it for the Plague Doctor reworks. She's still gonna have a lot of her vulnerabilities with the moves, but she's gonna have better opportunities to actually use her other abilities, which are gonna get side buffs, to, in case even if she does get pulled, she isn't completely useless. So that is quite nice of her. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this rework. Hopefully we get the Butcher Circus back up and running soon. And let me know what you want to see next. Once again, I still don't have like a roadmap planned for doing all these characters. I'm not sure if I want to give any other character like substantial buffs. These are basically the two characters that really needed the buffs. Up next we might be looking at kind of underwhelming trinkets like Ank of Life. And keep in mind that I will basically not be adding things that are not in the game already, so I won't be adding like revive or anything like that. I want to make these changes as easy to implement as Red Hook can possibly get them. So maybe someday we just give them a sheet full of suggestions, and they're like, okay, you know what, stop annoying us, and just we'll do your suggestions and stay still for another 2 years. All right, yeah, that is essentially the idea here. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again another time. Cheers.